Hi.
Hi. Hi.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah. Your
Okay, good.
background is so
Oh,
cute.
thank you. It's my barrage of, you know, my own books.
I love all the
And then
pink.
some of my favorite.
I love the original cover. I don't have that one. I have the new one, which
This
is also
one.
really cute. Yes.
Yeah, I have this one, and then I have the original indie cover as well. I just don't have it displayed. I don't have the model cover though, which is kind of sought after, but this is my favorite cover. Yes. I mean, of my indie covers, it's my favorite cover.
It looks really pretty.
You'll have to forgive me. I'm a bit like, well,
Well, thanks for still making time for this. I'm really
of
excited.
course. Yeah, me too.
Well, we will just jump right in.
Sure.
We are talking about Holding the Reins, which
Yes.
I was trying to remember when this released, like with traditionally through Dell. Was it the end of last month?
Yeah, it was October 22nd.
Okay, nice. So it's been
Hmm.
out for about a month now to the mass.
Yeah. Hmm.
Um, but before we start talking about that, why don't you just tell us a little bit about you and like your journey as an author?
Sure. I mean, I've always written my whole life. I wrote. I always wrote short stories, and I always wrote poetry when I was young. Um, just anything really. It was kind of like my outlet, my creative outlet. And I didn't really start writing books until I had kids, and I needed some kind of creative outlet just for myself, like at night. Um, and yeah, it kind of just went from there. I ended up writing like a few different styles of books. I wrote. Like a new adult, and I even have like some other darker romances kind of like on the back burner right now that are half written, half ready to go. But the cowboy romances kind of just have my heart. I'm writing book four right now in Silver Pines, so I'm like deep in the cowboy romance era at this point in time.
I love that. Well, since this is the one that we're talking about, can you give us maybe a general synopsis of Holding the Reins and the Silver Pines series?
Of course. Well, Holding the Reins obviously follows Nash and Cece, but it follows the whole Ashby family really. And I really wanted to have everyone be front and center. I didn't want just one star of the show. I wanted people to be like excited when everybody came into the pages. You know, when the grandfather came into the pages, Papa Dean and Mama Joe, and I just wanted everyone to kind of fall in love with all the characters in the story. And a lot of those characters are getting their own books. So everyone will kind of have their own time to shine. And I just wanted to share their closeness and their family unit, that kind of like found family comfort. Um, yeah, I just wanted it to be a comfort. I wanted the books to be a comfort. So, yeah.
So, this book in particular, the main characters, the male main character, he is a hockey player, part-time cowboy. I'm curious, like, where you got the inspiration for that. Why those two dynamics?
Yeah, sure. Well, we spend a lot of time in the States. We have ties there, and especially particularly in the Kentucky and Tennessee area. And we love that area. It's Kentucky is really special, and I think that it's kind of a hidden gem in the U.S. A lot of people don't understand how beautiful it is and how special it is and how special all the people are there. And we were there once, and we had heard that hockey is just non-existent in Kentucky, which is really weird because it is existent in Ohio and in Tennessee and in surrounding states. So I thought, why not have a retired NHL player from Kentucky? That would never, ever happen because Kentucky does not have NHL players. Um, and he has like a heart of gold, and he wants to give back and bring that grassroots kind of program to the little kids of Kentucky who are great little hockey players but don't have an outlet. So that's kind of where that idea just dawned. And I was like, how can I fit it into this like southern kind of slow, simple kind of way of life of Kentucky? Well, I'm going to give them a horse ranch, and he's going to be a part-time cowboy on the horse ranch. So yeah, it just kind of all came together.
So, what type of research did you have to do into like the cowboy culture, the hockey culture, if any? What was that like?
Well, the hockey culture I'm pretty familiar with because I am from Canada. So we live and breathe hockey here. So I know a lot about hockey. My husband loves hockey. My kids love hockey. My whole family loves hockey. We watch it, we know all the rules, we know the ins and outs. So that was not an issue. But I did have to do kind of a deep dive into the world of horse ranching and equestrian, centers and facilities. And I kind of bent the rules when I made the Silver Pines Ranch, because normally you would never have a ranch that did boarding and lessons and um, doing race horsing. That just wouldn't happen. There is a couple places in the United States that do that, but they're very, very rare. So I bent the rules a little bit with that, and I kind of reached out to a few different places and learned everything I could, especially during Train in the Heart, about how horse racing works, the road to the Kentucky Derby. I had an amazing consultant that wrote for the Kentucky Derby. So yeah, there's a lot of research that goes into every book you write, just because you do want it to be, it's fiction. It can have, its little, you can bend the rules, but you can't like break every rule. So yeah, lots of research for sure.
Well, Cece and Nash both have very distinct personalities and points of view, so I would love to know more about how you approach writing dual POV.
Yeah, I just kind of have to get into those two people's heads while I'm writing. And it's all about kind of sitting down, and I start like a list before I even start the writing process of what is their personality, what drives them, most importantly, what trauma have they had in their lives, what experiences have they had. And then I have to break them apart, because it is very easy when you're writing. There's many times where I'm writing the male POV where, he'll say this one thing, let's say, and I'll go, no, that's too feminine. He wouldn't say that, or he wouldn't think that. And vice versa, same thing. Maybe I'll have my FMC cuss a little too much, then I'll have to back out and go fix that, because she's not going to do that. So, yeah, it's definitely not an easy task to write a dual POV, but it's something I really enjoy. I don't know if I could ever do it any other way, just because I feel like we want that perspective from both sides, right? We're always dying for it. Like I know I am as a reader. So I definitely feel like, it's a lot to separate them, but it's worth it in the end.
Yeah, I feel like, I mean, I've read many single POV and I enjoy them, but there's just something that elevates a book for me when
hmm
it's got both perspectives. I crave that so much.
Yeah, so do I. I mean, you're reading, their very first spicy scene, and you're reading the female perspective. And then when that man's perspective hits, you're just like, all right, let me in, let me at it. I want it. You want to know what their thoughts are. And yeah, I totally agree with that. I think that it's definitely the way I like to read. So it's probably always the way that I'll write.
So, do you write, like, do you go through and write everything in one person's voice and then go back through, or do you write them in tandem?
I write them in tandem. So I try to not go more than a two chapters, maximum three if there's something crazy going on and there's lots of drama in the story at that point in time. But I always go tandem back and forth, just whatever feels natural, really. I really go with the flow. I do have a writing plan, but I'm always veering off of that writing plan. I'm writing, like I said, book 4 today. And even today, I kind of like had to stop and take a little bit of a break because one little part wasn't fitting. And then I went and wrote it from his POV, and I was like, okay, now that's clicking. Now that's working, so it's just kind of going with whatever feels natural at the time.
I love that insight. That is so cool.
Mhm.
Well, Cece and Nash in this book are both, they're coming back home after years away. And I found this really fun because I think a lot of the time when you're reading like small town or cowboy ranch, it's usually like one person is coming in
Mhm.
and the other person has like been there their whole lives, but like both of them have gone away and now they're back. So was that like intentional? Did it just happen that way? Why did that happen?
Well, for Nash, I feel like it was important that he was there off and on as Cece's dad was sick. And when you're in the NHL, you're not home. You're always gone all the time. So in order for that to work with him being a hockey player, he had to travel. Um, and they just were kind of like star-crossed lovers. They never were really there at the same time. She says she was there at certain times, but he was just never there. They did see each other at Cece's father's funeral, but it was very fleeting. And I wanted them to have no connection. I wanted that relationship to be like, for it to be believable, neither one of them would have to know each other anymore. Because when you grow up with somebody and you're with them every single day, or they're at your parents' home every single day, you kind of do get like a brother kind of vibe from him, or a sister kind of vibe from her, especially when she's younger. So I really wanted that separation for the two of them, so that when they came back home, it was like they were almost strangers again, but they had this level of comfortable familiarity with each other. So.
I think you did it so well too. I loved
You.
that. Well, um, one
Hi,
thing,
Erin. Sorry.
no, you're good. One thing that both, and I've been able to read Training the Heart too. No spoilers there because it doesn't come out for another month.
Right.
But both of the books explore pretty heavy topics like parental death, trauma, infidelity. How do you go about writing such heavy topics while still keeping it like a fun and hopeful story?
Yeah, I think it's just all about balance because that's what life is like, right? Even when you experience grief and you experience loss, there's still joyful things in those moments. So I really wanted to show that while I was writing Holding the Reins, it actually came really, from a deep place in me because my own grandfather, who was very, very close with, he passed away right before Holding the Reins came out, and he was in hospital for a long while. And it was one of those things where it was a blessing almost at the time. But I really wrote a lot of that grief into Cece's grief with her own father. And it was really cathartic for me to write that because as my own papa passed away, we were still having joyful moments, as a family, getting together and doing things and remembering him. So I wanted to add those little bits of like, where they're at the table and they're joking around, like, Wyatt wouldn't allow you to wear that Yankees shirt at the table. And those are real. Those are moments that happen when you lose somebody that you're close to. So, yeah, I just think it's all about balance and just keeping, heavy, heavy topic, then it's light and it's funny. And, it's just, again, what flows naturally at the time when I'm writing, I guess.
Yeah, it's just life.
Exactly.
One of the things that you did that I love so much is I feel like there's a big emphasis on strong friendship
Hmm.
groups, but not just female. They're like the male friendships are so special. So I kind of wanted to dive into that and
Yeah.
figure out why you decided to highlight both of them so much.
Yeah, because I think those people are the people you rely on and the people that you're with every day. And even for Nash and the brothers, when he got back, they just kind of went off like no time had passed. And, you're always, especially when you're at that time in your life, you're meeting new people, you're obviously he's falling in love and he doesn't know what's going on. And those two guys obviously have things going on where they don't know what's going on. So they stick together and it's like I said, that found family, that closeness, that I'll be here for you no matter what. That was really important to me to include for on both sides. And just show the whole friend group as a really tight knit group to begin with, right?
Yeah. Well, these are romance books. So I found them to be very hot, very spicy. And I really love how just unapologetically like sex forward and sex positive the characters are.
Mhm.
I definitely want to discuss why you think it's important to showcase like especially women
Mhm.
experience pleasure and not having shame about that.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, I feel like, for the most part, when I write an FMC, I almost always like to write the sexual awakening when she meets the MMC, just because, there's sex is sex and that's great and fine to enjoy it. However, whenever, whatever, I don't have any issue with that ever. But for me, I really want to show that connection between the two of them just elevates that experience so much more and so much higher. So things that are happening to her that she's never felt before, and same for him too, things that are happening to him that he's never felt before. I want to showcase that and show like how beautiful is love. Like you should never be ashamed of anything you're doing with the person that you love, I believe personally. So I just feel like, it just was so important to show them having no like inhibitions at all. They just could kind of do their thing and love it. And I mean, I love to write it. So
Yeah, and I mean, obviously you know this, but it's such a key part of like the trust that they build too, which I find, especially in the books that I've read of yours, to be like so pivotal in the like progression of their relationship. I really enjoy that part of it.
yeah, the moment where they realize like, well, this just isn't sex anymore. This is feeling, and I really have a great moment like that in the third book in Riding the High, where, obviously we all know it's Cole and Ginger's book. They have so much feeling between the two of them. So to try to, hold that off a little bit in that book was tricky because they have always had strong feelings for each other. So even if they're anger or even if they're annoyance, so I just feel like, yeah, it's one of my favorite parts is just adding that moment where they just realize like, aha, I love this person. And that just makes this so much better.
Well, I don't know how you've held off in these two books already because it just feels like that should have already happened. But
Yeah. I mean,
well, if
I'm excited for everyone to get the behind the scenes on Cole and Ginger because their story it's a lot different than the first two, you know. Even though Nash and Cece had a connection, Cole and Ginger, you know, and I've had a lot of speculation, like, you know, something's going on there, you know, behind the scenes, but I just really want to show it's not what you think behind the scenes with them, and they are. I just loved writing them so much. Like, you know, it was just such a joy to finally get to put their story on paper, so to speak. And I've had a lot of fun with it. I'm actually going into the final kind of pass with it this next couple of weeks, and then it's going to be off to galleys, and it'll be, you know, ready for arcs. So it's just a really exciting time for them.
well, I know so many people are really excited not to like skip over Training the Heart because that's
Yeah.
so great and everyone's gonna love it. But like I know that that's one that everyone is just like so ready for.
Yeah, and I mean it's tricky as an author to write that story that everybody's anticipating, right? Because everybody wants Cole and Ginger's story, and I really wanted to make their story special and unique and different from a lot of what I've seen out there. And obviously, you know, I've been very public about the fact that there's an accidental marriage trope in it, but I wanted to do it differently. So it's done a little bit differently, and you know, you'll all see that when it comes to be, but it is a tricky task to write a couple that is really anticipated. So I hope I've done everyone proud. We'll find out, I guess, in May, but
I have full faith in you.
thank you.
Circling back to Holding the Reins, if readers could take just one thing away from this book, what would you want that to be?
I think the found family, like I think just that, you know, that comfort, like I said, I think everybody is searching, like this life is so busy and we're always going, you know, 24/7, no matter what stage of life we're at, whether we're, you know, in college or we're just getting married and having kids, or, you know, or even when we're older and our kids are older. It's like everyone wants to slow down. And I really wanted that, you know, comforting kind of like pace lowered. Like, you know, I just want you to jump into the book and just be able to enjoy that, even if it's not your life at the time. So yeah, that found family, that comforting found family, the simple Southern way of life. I really wanted that to kind of shine through. And the people of Kentucky, because I've met some amazing people there, and I just think it's just such a beautiful place. So shout out Kentucky. I love you.
I have spent some time in Kentucky and I do think it is a very lovely place.
It is. It is. It really is beautiful too, especially the closer you get to Kentucky. People don't realize the mountains and the green hills and the rolling, you know, it's just beautiful, and the people are beautiful. So for the most part, whoever I've met anyway. So
Well, this is a question I ask pretty frequently, and it tends to be really difficult, but I'm going to ask it anyway, which is
all right, go for it.
if you had to fan cast your two main characters, could you do it? And if so, who would you cast?
Oh my gosh. Um, okay. There's an actress, I don't know her name, so I'm on the spot, but she plays in oh my gosh. I'm trying to think of her name now. She plays in if my husband was here, he would know it. She's in with Scarlett Johansson in
Are
oh
you
my
talking about
gosh.
Florence Pugh?
Yes, thank you. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I love her so much. She's also in, like, you know, Endgame and all the other Marvel movies, but like that she's been in recently. But yeah, her for sure. And for a man, I don't know. I love Riley Green, but I feel like everyone kind of has told me, oh, he reminds them of Wade. So I couldn't really pick him as Nash. So I always pictured Nash more of like Chris Hemsworth kind of type too. So I'm not sure. I've never really thought about it, honestly. I've allowed that dream to enter my head, but never really cast the characters. But definitely Florence. Yeah, I love her. I think she's fantastic. So she's just like a little spitfire in real life, and she's really like body positive and just such an inspiration. I love everything about her. So I would choose her for Cece for sure.
Yeah, she's like my biggest girl crush, so I
Me
love her
too.
so much.
Yeah, me too.
Well, I want to kind of turn, we've talked a little bit about your writing process,
Hmm.
but I would love to know a little bit more, like maybe how your process or habits have changed during, you know, the progression of your career, pantser, plotter, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I've definitely got a lot more organized with just the different writing, you know, styles. I've kind of like, when I first wrote Holding the Reins, it took a really long time to write it. I had no deadlines. It took me a year to write Holding the Reins. And it was actually finished, 3 months before I even started my Instagram page for the most part. And so I've had it. I mean, I started it 2 years ago now. So it's been a long time coming. But with these other ones, they've been faster. And I have to be a lot more organized and with my time and just with my storyline as well. So what I've started doing differently now is completely plotting the entire book out in very great detail before I even start writing, almost to the chapter, so that I know by chapter 10, this, and this has happened, by chapter 20, this, and this has happened. And I can feel like I'm staying very on track. I also started a binder system where I've got everything coded kind of and organized on, what each character feels and, their different things that have happened to them over the years. So definitely I've got a lot more organized. I've had to, and it's helped me, I think, as a writer too, because I can focus more on the small details versus, oh yeah, what's gonna happen. Like I had no clue when I was writing Holding the Reins. I was just going for it. Like I had, the other previous books that I had written before that too that are not published. But yeah, just definitely more organized.
Well, and what was it like to go from indie, which you still do
Mm-hmm.
indie, but also then enter like the traditional publishing, and how did that work with taking something you've already written and turning it over? Did they change a lot of things? How does that happen?
No, they really didn't change a lot of things. It's been a wild experience, and it was one that I didn't really seek. I mean, I always, of course, you wish that. I think in the back of your mind as an author that you can walk into a bookstore and see your books, or, into the local grocery store and see your books. But I wasn't pursuing going traditional at all. I've spoken about this before, where my editor in the UK actually reached out to me. She had read Holding the Reins on the weekend and was like, I really want to share this with my wider team. Would you be okay with that? And I was like, first I had to Google her to make sure it was real, because, I had emails like that before that weren't real. Or so I was like, okay, yeah, sure, go for it. I let her share it. And I mean, she came back within a few weeks and was like, okay, we want to go ahead and publish it. And then, of course, I got the amazing team on board from the US, and I just think it's been amazing. They've been all so great, and they're so, they let me be involved as much as I want to be, and all the covers and all the different things that they've chosen. They've always are running it by me. Even little changes, that they think I should be making, they'll say only if you want to. No pressure, no whatever. So no, it's been an amazing experience. Like Random House is top notch, and all their subsidiaries, like the ones that I'm working with, are fantastic. So it's definitely a different experience because you're not worrying. You're handing a manuscript off, and yes, you have to go over the edits and you have to do whatever, but you don't have to put together the ARC team. You don't have to, worry about marketing as much. Like I am marketing, but not like to the extent that I am, the other books that I have indie published.
That's so cool. So
Yeah, it's fun.
how do you now approach, writing time, the press and marketing, engaging with your readers, doing stuff like this, like having your personal life? How do you figure all of that out?
I don't. I'm winging it. I have no idea what I'm doing. Oh, I'm literally like, going through trying to plan out my posts and trying to do all of that and talking to people and trying to message people back in my inbox. And it does take a lot of time. I thankfully have an amazing supportive husband who's, always picking up the slack whenever I have to drop it. And yeah, it's not easy to manage, but I'm working on it and I'm doing it, and we'll see how it goes. I mean, I've got a lot of balls in the air all the time. So, um, we'll just try our best to keep everything moving.
What is one piece of advice that you would share with aspiring authors, current authors, anyone?
Yeah, just write. Don't hold back what you're writing. I feel like that was my biggest mistake when I wrote my first few manuscripts, that I was like, okay, this is going to be my first, shot into the world. And then I was like, no, I didn't put in it what I wanted to put in it. I was worried like maybe someone from high school would read it, or maybe my grandmother would read it, or my mother, my father. Um, but when I wrote Holding the Reins, I felt something else pushing me, and I just knew that I had to just go for it and not hold back. And if it seemed over the top, or like spicy scene or whatever that I just normally wouldn't write, I was like, just do it, just go for it and see what happens. And I had some incredible people, like amazing alpha readers and beta readers, that really were encouraging that way too. So there would have been things that might have been changed or left out if I didn't have them and they weren't so incredible.
That's amazing. I know someone, I think one one time was just like, I kind of have to write as if no one's ever going to read it. And not
Exactly.
in a way of like, hey, I'm slacking here, but no, I'm gonna put all of it out
Hmm.
there and then I'll see what I've got. And I love that. It sounds similar to what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, there was a scene in Training the Heart where, and I've been again public with this. So I don't mind sharing this little spoiler, I guess, but I mean, it is a microtrope that she calls him good boy. And when I first wrote that, I was commenting to my alpha reader. I was like, should I leave this here? I don't know. Like, it hadn't really been done at that point in time because this was a year ago and I hadn't really heard of it too much. And she was like, you leave that right there. Don't you take that out. She was very adamant. And I was like, all right, I'll do it. So, I mean, yeah, you do. You have to write like no one's going to read it or judge you or think, what is that girl thinking? What's going through her mind? But yeah, it's definitely the way I would advise anyone. Just write what's in your mind and don't hold back.
Well, I've loved talking about holding the reins,
Hmm.
and I also love training the heart. And we've talked about Cool and Ginger, but officially want to ask, what is next for you? What is next for this series? What can people be looking out for, looking forward to?
Yeah, so well, 4 and 5 are coming. Like book 4 and 5 for Silver Pines are coming. Book 4, I'm about 30K words into that right now, so about a third done it, and it's going to be late next fall, at least for sure in the UK, late next fall. I don't have anything worked out for the US as far as timeline or anything yet, but hopefully that'll come soon. And then I have the Skyward Hotshot series coming up in January with Sloan St. James and Danielle Baker. That is done, and we're just kind of waiting on release, waiting for it to go to ARCs. And definitely some new books in the Hounds of Hell series for the darker romance fans. But yeah, it's a lot right now, but we're going for it, and we'll see where we get next year.
Well, in this series specifically, is five the total number, or are you going for
Mhm.
more than that?
No, it'll be 5. I have, two more plotted out that make sense. Book 4 will be about Hayden, who's Wade's top ranch hand. You would have met him in Training the Heart, and Cassie, who's Ivy's little sister. She's a bluegrass musician, really a songwriter, and that story's about them. And I am literally in love with them right now. I'm like I said, 30K in, and I just had so much fun because there's nobody knows them. They're two, brand new characters that I can just like you kind of meet them throughout the first you meet Hayden through the first 2 books, but you really, just they're fresh, they're new. So and they're younger, so it's been really fun to write them. And then book 5 Olivia will get her book in book 5. So
Yay. That's so
yeah.
well, you are a busy woman. You've
Yes.
got a lot going on. So I'm really grateful you took the time to speak with me. And
Of
I'm
course.
not keep you any longer, but everybody should go read Holding the Reins if you haven't yet and pre-order Training the Heart. It comes out next month.
But
But
New
thank
Year's
you.
Eve.
Wow, what a fun day.
Mhm.
We don't need to do anything but
No.
read to read in the new year.
And the next day is the holiday, so
Perfect. It's the perfect plan.
mhm.
Make plans now.
There you go.
Thank you so much, Paisley. I hope you have a great
Thank
evening.
you. You too. Thank you, guys.
Bye, everyone.